You know, we could get our podcast up to #1 if we released a Tiger King episode.
Yeah, but that means I'd have to subject myself to Tiger King. Welcome back to Poutine Politics, Canadian issues served with cheese curds. My name's Adam.
My name's Mike.
And Mike, we're going to talk about something that happened, well, I guess a couple of weeks ago now. We're behind the times now. What are we going to do?
Fall into my rut?
Yeah, that's right.
I talk about topics that happened like 50, 60, 70 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get to those topics too. We have some of those episodes in the backlog. No, but I guess what I wanted to talk about was Bill 10 in Alberta.
Bill 10?
Bill 10.
What's Bill 10?
Exactly. What is Bill 10?
I don't know the bill names.
Well, it is the Public Health Emergency Powers Amendment Act of 2020.
Okay.
So this bill passed into royal assent on April 2nd of 2020. Now, depending on how you feel about legislation, that date is important because the province of Alberta announced their state of emergency on March 17th. And there were certain things, especially because of the social distancing and, where people would be allowed to go and facilities they would be allowed to use and things like that during the emergency, during the public health emergency. And different governments have been doing this, but levying certain fines and things like that to say, if you're caught, breaking any of these rules, then individuals are going to get a fine of X and corporations could get a fine of Y and, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at least from my understanding from doing research about this bill, there's supposed to be some sort of law or provision in place already that would allow a government to make these kinds of changes. In Alberta, they have a bill that's called the Regulations Act. For instance, from doing the research on this bill, from doing the reading on towards this bill, because it really wasn't research. The Regulations Act states that changes to regulations are not valid against persons who have not been given actual notice of them and have not been published in the Alberta Gazette. So essentially, if the government wants to make a change, there has to be notification of it for it to be valid. Make sense?
Yep.
So I know one of the things that was mentioned in the articles I was reading is that it's like the $1,000 fine for people for not socially distancing.
Okay.
So that was introduced by the Minister of Health, Tyler Shandro, and obviously the Ministry of Health. You're laughing when I mentioned the name.
Yeah.
Have you heard more about Tyler Shandro since the last time I mentioned his name?
Like I said, it was a 50-50 debate.
Yeah. Okay. So this new fine for not following social distancing was created, but there was no public notice put out. It wasn't put in the Alberta Gazette, so it was so technically levying that fine was against the Regulations Act. So where Bill 10 comes in, there's a couple of parts to it, but so I guess the first part that I'll say about Bill 10 is that it introduces it's kind of meant to give law enforcement more power in regards to how they manage certain situations in a public health emergency. Obviously, not just limited to the current situation, limited to any public health emergency in the future.
Right.
There's also a provision in the bill that, so I guess in the original Public Health Act, so before what they were allowed to do is if there was a law in place, they could suspend that law.
Okay.
And so what they added in the amendment was that not only can a current law that exists be suspended, but a new law can be created with no oversight, no debate, and doesn't even have to be voted on in the legislature.
Okay.
Bill 10 was not given a sunset clause.
Oh! Well then.
Now
it took the Liberal government 5 hours to figure out that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Way
Well,
to go, UCP.
The difference is, the federal Liberals are dealing with a minority, and that was never going to pass. The UCP is like, oh well, I mean, we have a majority here.
I want to give the federal Liberals a little bit more credit to that. That's saying that the only reason they ripped it off the plate was because of the fact that they were in a majority situation. They may not have still done it. I'll give them a little bit more credit than that.
Okay, fair enough.
UCP, the corruption in that party is.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So the bill, like this amendment, has not been given a sunset clause. Now these new bills or laws, well, not bills, I guess it'd be laws, offenses, fines, whatever. They can be given sunset clauses. But yeah, the bill itself doesn't have a sunset clause. So now some people are saying it's a crazy abuse of power and anything can be passed and so on and so forth. And it's kind of true, but it does also have to be during a public health emergency. So let's say when this situation with COVID-19 is over and the public health emergency is dropped, that provision within Bill 10 doesn't have any effect until the next public health emergency.
No. If it's still an overreach of power. You could the same issues that I had problems with the Liberal government even introducing it federally, where they had executive power, is the exact same reason why I don't think it should be done in Alberta. Like, there's no difference. I'm not also like, because I'm conservative, be like, no, it's okay. They know what they're doing. No, you should never have executive power. Mm-hmm. Like, we're a democracy. You should never have executive power like that. Sorry, I shouldn't say never. There is very rare circumstances. Wars.
Yeah. Well, which is where the emergency, like the Federal Emergencies Act, would come in.
Yeah. And catastrophic pandemics. Not this kind of pandemic. Spanish influenza pandemic levels, we'll call it.
Yeah. Well,
that kind of situation.
Catastrophic national emergencies, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Not even just health issues.
Yeah, those are the things where executive powers, I think that's necessary, right? Like, I'll give, I'll say, like, listen, you need to do what you need to do, and you need to do as quick as possible, right? Like, you'll make mistakes, but I don't care, do it.
Yep.
It's circumstances like that, right? We're not there. We have time to, assess and figure out and debate about things, and we should.
Yep.
In a limited scope, of course, and you should have powers that make it easier to do things, but still limited scope. And I mean, I know that a majority come and they can pass whatever they want to, basically. But still, what?
Yeah. So then the icing on the cake with this one is that they passed the bill on April 2nd, but they made it retroactive to March 17th, which was the day that the public health emergency was put in place. So
what they're saying is that retroactive, meaning that it can take an effect because the public emergency was already declared. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
So that way they wouldn't have to wait for the next one?
That's right. For instance, well, not only that, but for instance, like, because even if they had passed it and said, well, it takes effect April 2nd, like the day that the bill passed, it's like, well, we're under a public health emergency. So this bill takes effect right away. But by making it retroactive to March 17th, they basically made it so that the new things like the new fines and levies and things like that were announced by the Ministry of Health after March 17th, but before April 2nd, were lawfully done, even though the law didn't exist until April 2nd.
Yeah, that's not going to create any problems. They're not going to get any losses with that.
No, not at all.
Fine. Don't worry about it.
Nothing. Any of those penalties, fines, and things like that were levied between March 17th and April 2nd, nobody's going to challenge those in court. Not at all.
Nope, that's not going to happen at all.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be whatever. It's going to be fine.
Goddamn idiots!
It's going to be fine.
Wow. Sometimes I just laugh at the UCP. Like, I noticed that we have a theme about which provinces we talked about, which ones we forget. We don't talk about. And it's just because they're not messing up. They're not tripping.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I
don't talk about Saskatchewan because Saskatchewan doesn't make mistakes like this.
I think the problem with Saskatchewan is more so that Kenny is so loud that nobody hears Mo.
Sure. I mean, if I really wanted to dig up some dirt on Mo, I probably could.
Yeah.
But Manitoba, we don't bring up. I don't think we've ever brought up. Saskatchewan, no. Well, the Maritimes I do because I just find them fun.
Yeah.
PEI, again. Did we talk about that?
No, not yet.
Maybe not. I don't know.
You got to think that's two of the four largest provinces, right? I mean, like, it goes Ontario, Quebec, BC, Alberta. So we talk about Ontario and Alberta because Ontario, we live here, and Alberta is the next. It's the next province that is prevalent in the national stage, right? Everybody's hearing about Alberta.
That's because they're just comedy gold.
Yeah.
Like, they're.
Anyways,
it's an overreach of power again. Like, the Conservative government got broken up because they were too much of cronies, and that's why they created the Wild Rose and the Conservative Party. And then Kenny was supposed to unite them to avoid cronyism, and since day one,
yeah, that's working out.
Day one, he did everything the wrong way.
Yeah,
like from even getting elected with his suicidal campaign that the other guy did. The stories that have come out.
Hey, don't forget. We gotta cut all those teaching jobs and healthcare jobs, and we have $7.5 billion to invest into Keystone XL. I think the greatest thing that's happened is like within a week of him announcing that extra funding for Keystone XL, there's a judge, I can't remember what state it's in, that has blocked the pipeline again.
Yeah, like it's done.
It's over.
Like I can't see it coming back.
And you know what? Again, for the people that work in that industry, I feel terrible.
Well, it's very cyclical. I mean, anyone who's ever worked in Alberta in the oil industry, they know that there's big ups and big downs, and you have to understand this. But the thing about it is like, and this is what got missed, because I didn't see any news coverage on it really.
Yeah.
The fact that the most layoffs in one day from like one organization ever occurred was in Alberta.
Yeah.
Because they cut 20,000 teacher jobs in one day. No one has done more ever in Canada. Like, how did that get missed? How is that not like the most pressing news? Like, yeah, COVID-19 is big, but like these jobs, regardless of whether or not COVID-19 happened or doesn't, these jobs are still getting lost. And they did it like through a tweet on like Saturday or Friday. I can't remember what it was, but they cut 20,000 jobs.
You have to think since the public health emergency was announced, March 17th. Cutting the 25,000 teachers and support staff and things like that. I don't think it was all teachers.
Education.
Either way,
20,000. I was supposed to say 20K education jobs, not necessarily teachers.
Right, but they also passed a bill that took effect on April 1st and essentially reduced doctors' pay during a pandemic.
I mean, and like they say, well, the doctors are getting paid more in Alberta. They do get paid more than Alberta, but the cost of living in Alberta is also higher.
Yeah.
Than everyone else too, right? So you have to take a look at both sides of that coin.
It's the economy of scale, right? Teachers in Alberta also get paid the highest on average. But again, if the cost of living is higher there because the economy is the way that it is, then they're getting paid fairly.
Yeah, I don't get it, and all Alberta has to do to fix this problem. It's a radical concept. You've only been saying it for what? Since we started this,
yeah, I know.
Put a sales tax in.
Problem
solved.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, like it does introduce other problems. Like it does hamper the economy. Yeah. Yada. But
I think
you want to save the problem. That's what you can do, and you don't have to do a crazy 7-8% sales tax. No. You can do what Saskatchewan does, 2 or 3, isn't it?
Saskatchewan's 5.
Okay.
Yeah, Saskatchewan's fine. But I've read things that say that if Alberta introduced a 3% sales tax based on, I mean, obviously now again with COVID-19, it's gonna be like everyone else. Their budget's gonna be out the window, right? But,
yeah, their budgets are out the window.
But before COVID-19 and any additional spending and things like that, it was like with a 3% sales tax, they would have a surplus.
Yeah. Like the fact that the Alberta government is pushing forward and doing things that are just like everyone else is trying to say, hey, we've got your back. And when the education minister says 2 weeks beforehand, listen, I know things are crazy right now. Your education budgets for this upcoming fall, don't worry, they're not going to get touched.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just going to deal with whatever happens. And then they completely turn around and do something completely different. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are the issues I had with Ford's government before January.
Right.
Saying one thing and then doing the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And now UCP, during a crisis, is doing the same thing. Like, doing the exact same MO of like, oh, don't worry, guys. Publicly, we're going to say this. And then we're going to release something, bury it in like 500,000 other news stories.
Well, think of the things that they've done since March 17th. Okay, they still passed a budget where nobody else is passing a budget, and they passed a budget with, again, essentially little to no debate, little to no oversight, not taking recommendations, and they're a majority, so they can just pass it, and it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That budget was still based on, at some point in the 5 years. I don't remember exactly like if it was an average thing or what, but it was like at some point in the 5 years that they were looking at in that kind of budgetary window, the price of oil would be $58 a barrel. And that was that's how it would make sense.
It was looking for it next year.
For 2021?
Yeah, they expect WTI to be at $60. That's their budget projection.
Not likely at this point. As I look at it right now, obviously it's not changing right now because it's not trading right now. Yeah, it's at $18.
My God, what are you doing?
So to go back to the list, you pass a budget when nobody else is passing a budget. You cut education workers, while the schools are closed.
Single biggest layoff in Canada's history. Yep.
Yeah, single biggest layoff in Canada's history. You cut doctors' pay in the middle of a pandemic. Yep. And then you pass a bill retroactively giving you almost authoritative powers.
Yep.
Good job, guys.
And the job well done.
Job well done. 10 out of 10, 100%. And
remember how we
Isn't that what you say?
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Would do again. Remember how we said about the 24-hour period thing? Like, we can't bash them?
Yeah.
No, they're running business as usual. They don't get exempt from that rule.
That's right.
If you're running a pandemic government, you can get exempt from it. So the other 9 provinces and 3 territories, you all get exempt. But Kenny, you're running business as usual, so no.
Yeah.
You can be hammered. When you start running business appropriately, where you're not threatening to cut jobs, like Ford is basically giving a blank check to everybody. He's like, listen, we're going to do what we can.
Yeah.
We're going to do what we can. And so far, he's been carrying through. Not perfect. He's not he's not batting 100% here, but nobody is. Well, but he's trying.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No. But what is Kenny doing? What are you doing? Oh, wait, no. Keep in mind, he did cut back his war room a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no one's fighting oil right now.
It's okay. The war room's the lost leader anyways, man. The war room's the lost leader.
Oh, my God. I couldn't believe that was the thing that they're trying to... Oh, well, we cut back our war room. Who's fighting oil right now? Who cares about oil?
Yeah.
There's no environmentalists going... bad oil.
I mean, they possibly cut back the war room as well because, they are getting $1.7 billion from the federal government for the orphan wells.
Yeah. Don't even talk about orphan wells.
Well,
they're going to have to do just sales tax. They're going to have to put like a 10% sales tax, just deal with orphan wells.
Well, what is estimates? Estimates are that to clean up that mess is like over $100 billion.
100. I've seen 500.
Yeah, I have seen higher as well, but that's like a lowball estimate. It's like this. I mean, again, this money from the federal government should hopefully put people back to work. So it was someone's tweet, and it was 47,000 abandoned oil and gas workers named Derek suddenly in Alberta and Saskatchewan and BC, or maybe it was just Alberta, suddenly realized that they're eligible for CERB.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, that's where we are. That's where we are in this day and age.
Yeah.
Status.
Yeah. So like Kenny, what are you doing? Like how is Ford just lapping you repeatedly with being a leader? Like, how is this a thing? Like, Ford has the complete majority, so he doesn't have to deal with anybody else, but he is.
Mm-hmm.
But like Kenny is just he's just trying to pull Trump, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the person in charge, and my way, and I'm gonna have authoritarian regime. Like, sorry, what? What I don't think Kenny realizes is that his party is going to be the party that everyone points to as the collapse of Alberta.
Oh yeah, that's quite possible.
Right, like when the history books come out, unless he changes direction because he's so aligned himself or in bed, depending on how you want to phrase it, with the oil industry,
mm-hmm.
they're going to look back on it and go, he's the reason why Alberta went down the drain.
Yep. Because it will have happened during their mandate.
Yeah.
So many people,
and they doubled down.
So many people want to blame the NDP and Rachel Notley, and it's like they were trying to diversify the economy. You can't do that in 4 years, and that's all they were given. They didn't necessarily make all the right steps,
No.
and all the right moves, but they were saying, look, oil and gas will only get this province so far. We need to do more. Okay. Well, anyways, this episode was, and still kind of is, about Bill 10 in Alberta.
Once Adam hacks slashes it, yeah, it will be.
Once I make a couple of cuts here and there, right?
Yep.
All right. If you want to hear the whole conversation, make sure to find our Patreon page and become a patron. You can hear all the uncut episodes there. We have some good conversation. Anyways, my name's Adam.
My name's Mike.
We'll talk to you soon.